I mean, you know what I hate is like when you eat something garlicky. Like I had some like garlic toast for lunch, and that was like what 4 hours ago, and I still have like that taste of garlic in my mouth. So I had to go upstairs and brush my teeth again, and I still feel like I have like that garlicky taste. It was like a lot of garlic.
Not how I was expecting the podcast to start.
Well, if you see me taking a lot of drinks of water, which I think I normally drink a lot of water anyways, it's because of like that garlic taste, and I probably should chew some gum, but either way.
Okay.
So yeah. So yeah. You're still in Washington State, right?
Idaho right now.
Idaho. Okay.
Yeah, I was confused before coming out here. I didn't quite understand, but basically, you fly into Spokane to get to this area, and then Spokane's maybe like 20 minutes west of the border of Washington and Idaho. Coeur d'Alene is like 10 minutes inside of Idaho, something like that. And Liberty Lake, where James lives, is right in between. And I'm at Pat's house, his dad, that's in Coeur d'Alene. So every day I've been just crossing the state border back and forth.
So let's get this out of the way now, because I actually want to talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah, great. I want a short podcast. Patrick wants to talk about NFL football.
I do, man. It's like I don't. Not many of my friends follow that like sports, and I know this year it's been weird because like in past years it seemed like you didn't really follow too much on sports, like but it seems like this year I think a lot of it had to do with you moving back and being like close to Kevin, your brother, your friends and friends and family. You've renewed interest again.
And I think just backing off the travel a little bit, like in the fall, there was a chance that I could have spent the entire fall in Europe working a dozen more competitions than I did. And I chose not to do that. Obviously that's the bulk of the football season. So I was able to watch a few more games. Yes. Spend time with my brother doing that.
Yeah. Which has been great, because like, I remember like last couple of years, you'd ask me like, hey, what's going on in the NFL? And I'm like,
this year I kind of know. And I mean, Mike put it up there that, there's a chance that the 49ers and the Bears would play, but both of them are underdogs going into this week. Anyway, the Niners have to go up to Seattle, where it's a tough place to play, but it's a division game. And, Seattle came down and beat San Francisco to get that home field. San Francisco is definitely going to have a chip on their shoulder. And, the 49ers, one of those teams where like everything has been against them. They can't stay healthy. Mm-hmm. I saw this like rumor of some facility nearby, possibly. I don't know what the heck they're talking about.
Yeah, I saw that too. Like this like electric was like this electrical. I mean, I'm sure pool boy knows, but they said that they think it's a conspiracy because of the electronic magnetic waves close to the practice facility. Yeah. So,
and then in the meantime, the Rams will come to Chicago. I think it's totally fair that the Rams are the favorite there. I mean, and it's pretty crazy. Like I asked my brother this today, and he said minus San Francisco's injuries, he would agree, but it's possible the three best teams in the NFL are all in the same division. Yeah. And 3 of the 4 teams that remain in the NFC are from that division. And then you got the Bears. And what I've been saying to my brother about the Bears all year is they strike me as a team that can beat anyone, but could lose to anyone. And I think, when it comes down to it in the NFL, Caleb Williams said it very well. Like it's a 60-minute game. He and Ben Johnson both are very composed under pressure. They're emotional, but they don't let their emotions derail them from, stepping up to and doing the next right thing in terms of a game, managing a play. And he's not a perfect quarterback by any means, but he has some skill sets that you can't teach. And we talk about that in fitness all the time. And we will talk about it today with the Mode Classic as well, that there's some things that you can improve, but when you have them innately, it can be a huge advantage. And if you can kind of round out the rough edges, otherwise, I wasn't so sure at first. My brother's been more convinced about Caleb Williams than I have, but with those rare abilities, good coaching, and a couple of years of experience, I think Tudor said it on the podcast, the live stream this weekend. Experience is king. Like you can't replace being in the arena. And he could certainly end up being a generational quarterback. So I think that, someone in here said it. Mike said it, every game prior to last night's game, the other 4 games, 14 points total separating those 4 results. So it's been a super exciting week of football for the NFL. And I think it'll continue. Everyone's
It's not over. Yeah, there's still a game tonight.
Yeah. And then next week, I think the same thing. I mean, there's going to be, likely going to be a lot of more close games. There's not really a clear favorite in either conference this year.
Yeah. If you go back, maybe 10 years ago, I'd be against you because I'm a Rams fan, but I'm not an LA Rams fan. Does that make sense?
Well, of course, man. They used to be in your hometown.
I know. I was a LA Rams fan before they moved to St. Louis, which was great. I mean, the age of myself, I was like Jim Everett, Flipper Anderson, Eric Dickerson when they played for the Rams. That was my squad. And then when they came to St. Louis, it was a dream come true. Greatest show on turf. Isaac Bruce,
Holt and Isaac Bruce. Oh,
Kurt, yeah. And Kurt Warner coming from Northern Iowa. Him being a Missouri Valley, Gateway football. Division I AA. That's what I played. So I had a lot of connection to that team. And the last year they were in the stadium, I actually worked for a company called Zebra Technologies. And our job was every game day is we put all that software. All the software that in their pads and everything. I was part of that. So I was at every Rams home game that last year. So all this enhanced stats that you saw, that all started popping up in 2015. And I was a part of that when it was here. And it was really cool. I got to be at every Rams home game. I got to meet all, we're involved with that. We sat in the booth with the same people that called down to the NFL officials that called down to the sideline to let them know, hey, you need to take that person in the blue tent to check them for head injuries. And so we're sharing
there was no blue tent back then.
Yeah, well, it wasn't, but it was so cool because you know what they did? They had I shit you not, they had a Xbox controller that they would use to rewind a game and slow things down, and they had a spotter up there that would just monitor people that go off the field. And if a player came off the field and shook their head, he would call down there and they would pull that guy and check him for a concussion. But I'm excited because, one of the first teams I ever followed also I was a big Walter Payton fan. The first pair of football shoes were Walter Payton Pumas.
Walter Payton's one of those players where I've never met anyone that was I didn't like Walter Payton as a person or a player.
Yeah. I mean,
it just seems yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Okay, Mike, right. We gave you 7.5 minutes of NFL football talk. Rare feat here on B.Friendly Fitness.
Exactly.
As usual, Patrick and I could go on all day, but the focus of today is going to be on Mode Classic. And as Patrick said, I'm still out here. I still have some things that I'd like to do while I'm out here today, but I did feel like it was important to get this podcast done this week. It's going to be a busy week, and it's going to be rolling into what's going to be a busy and awesome season for competitive fitness. But this competition was, it was kind of somewhat spontaneous for me to come out here. I think a lot of athletes and people who traveled in maybe weren't entirely sure what to expect. And it sounds kind of lame to say it, but this was just a really cool thing to be a part of the first time that it happened. And I didn't want to let too much time go by before we talked about it.
Yeah. And plus there's a lot of stuff that we'll talk about this week that have to do with other things, WFP, CrossFit, a bunch of other things, a lot of exciting things. But
yeah, WFP teased that they're going to announce their season tomorrow. The open registration starts this week. UAE Storm Games is coming up, but I thought this would be nice to do something specific to this competition before all that craziness starts.
Yeah, but I mean, for you to say something special, it's the first year, and it's with a good friend of yours, James, who you've known for a while, and you and him share a really good relationship, and it's obviously something special to him. And then just seeing the people there, and you could hear it in our conversations about how much just how comfortable and how at ease you were, and it's just really cool to hear. And let's talk about it.
I mean, part of the thing was that, James is, he's, you don't become great at anything if you're not, willing to be self-critical and self-reflective, but he was very good at also understanding what the people who were here supporting him are good at and giving them what they needed to do their thing. And so for me, that was the broadcast. I mean, I don't think he would have had a broadcast if I hadn't came. And him and Mode Campus collectively provided me with every resource that I needed to do this broadcast, whether it was tables and chairs, space on the floor, floor
tape.
layouts, so I could come up with Gorilla Tape, actually.
Gorilla Tape. Wow.
Floor layout plans, so I could try to strategically work with the cameras. He had two head judges, one for the RX division, one for the Elite division, because they were on different floors at different times. The guy who was the head judge, both of them CrossFit level 3s, so very well versed in movement patterns and the methodology. But the guy who was doing it for the Elite division, 24 years old, started in a CrossFit gym when he was 10. And every workout I met with him, and he said, hey, show me the camera angles so that I can communicate to the judges where they can best be to do their job in terms of communicating with the athlete, and not block the camera as much as possible. And we work together that way. And that sounds like a no-brainer thing, but that doesn't happen at every competition. Mm-hmm. This is the first time he's running it, and James is just trusting the people that he knows to work together and make decisions that are going to be the best presentation of what he's come up with in his head as it becomes a reality.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely showed in the broadcast. I mean, and even if there was, I think, did you do a 3-camera setup?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so that was really cool. You could definitely tell. I think it helped you get in there a little bit earlier, seeing the setup. Just kind of seeing things you can get all the plans beforehand, but it doesn't really take it. It takes you to actually be there and seeing what's available and how to do things. When you talked about the weightlifting events, hey, I'm going to have to figure out some way to mount the cameras, because typically what you've done is we put them on a tripod, especially the wide one. In weightlifting events, that thing shakes all the time. It doesn't matter where you do it at. The ground's going to shake when you have, over thousands and thousands of pounds being dropped, so you're I have to figure it out. And I thought you did a good job by taking it off a tripod. I guess were you just gorilla taping that one camera to a standard?
I taped them all up. I taped one to a wall. I taped the other two to pillars. The pillars were still shaking a little bit. The wall was better, but then in the last heat, it fell off the wall. But
but that was adjusting. I mean, it's just it's fine. It was you adjusting the environment. And, it's just one of those things we'll work on. But I thought overall, the broadcast was great. I mean, obviously, I probably, what I didn't watch live, I watched later on, especially the final. I was busy doing things. But, I thought it was probably one of the, especially going solo, is one of your better broadcasts of just overall. And I think a lot of it had to do is that you were sitting at a table and you were directing and broadcasting, as opposed to being on the field of play with the remote camera or anything like that. I think those are good in certain instances, but I think your strength is your knowledge of the athlete and you being able to see the whole field, and also to adjust with the cameras. I think that was probably your best play. And of course, we've talked about this before.
Yeah, definitely. And James asked me on the last day while I was there, how he felt that this setup compared to JR's setup at Crash Crucible. I think the two competitions are very comparable. Not a ton of divisions, not a ton of athletes per divisions, 2 fields of play within the same facility. And JR does heats of 6. This was heats of 5. So it's a little bit more manageable in terms of a broadcast, because obviously half the athletes on the field of play. You can spend a little bit more time on each one and whatever. Not every competition can accommodate all those things or wants to accommodate all those things. There's pros and cons to heats of 5 or 6 compared to 10, compared to 20. But yeah, it really just was James saying, yeah, let's do it. You tell me what you need and I'll give you anything that I can to support that. I think additionally, I have a pretty good vision for what I want to show at different times, but when it's just one camera on the floor, and when you are out on the floor, even if you have other cameras, it's difficult to remember to switch between those things. I also kind of was able to set up the cameras so that the workout description was showing for 2 of the 3 camera angles. And we did that intentionally. Sometimes we position it so that one wide shot wouldn't have it, because we didn't want it to interfere. But all these little details, I think, help to enhance it. And probably the biggest thing, I think, is also just having another voice. It doesn't matter if you're the best commentator in the world. I've never really seen a professional broadcast where there's just one person talking. And that's for a reason. People watching at home, they like to hear the different perspectives. A back and forth conversation allows for everyone to be more engaged than not. And I was really fortunate. I got James came on as much as he could. Tudor came on more than he had to.
Amazing.
We got Sean Sweeney on there. We had 3 of the male athletes who jumped on. Adam McAdams, who had to withdraw from the competition, was exceptionally. I was so impressed with him. Cam Gray, who traveled from Australia,
I was really
came on
impressed
for
by
a
him.
heat. Yeah, he's just a very cerebral thinker. So it's great to get his perspective, having competed and then come and commentate on I think one of the women's heats after that.
Yeah.
Bradley Alcock, the Masters athlete who was in the podium hunt the whole weekend, came on for a bit. Scott Freeman came on right at the end, and then Jason Ansley right after the competition to give his about 5 minutes of his thoughts. So very grateful for that, and something that I'm, immediately thinking about how can we, recreate some of this different style of broadcast for other competitions this year.
Yeah, and I think that was cool because, we've talked about for a while about like purchasing additional cameras, and I think this is the first time we've been able to kind of use all those cameras, because since you purchased them, we haven't done much in terms of competition, especially on our channel. I think you've done some things, but it was like on other people's channel where you were just simply doing the broadcast. But, I think it's a really good setup for what we have planned or could plan in the future at other competitions. And I think it's a really good representation of what we can do. And I think we can even do even more with some other things, and, maybe a couple extra bodies and stuff like that. But like you said, I thought it was great being in, the enhance, with the amount of people that you had there. Tudor was amazing. I thought he got better, more comfortable. I thought James, outside of him losing his voice, did exceptional. That was really cool. You don't really see that very often, where the competition director has time to come there and sit there and talk. And bravo to him. It just shows you how well organized he was to make time for you to come on and to do that, because he recognizes how important it is and what you did to get there. And I think
and he had he didn't have that many volunteers, but the volunteers that he had were very good and people that he trusted.
Yeah.
The competition floors were kind of running themselves. He had Bella Martin on the MC, and the MC is way more important than just a speaker.
Yeah.
She was the MC on the elite floor. His dad was the MC on the RX floor. Huge shout out to Pat Sprague. He's 60 years old, and he did 8 hours of heats back to back, 2 days in a row, kept everything on time. That's part of the job of the MC. So having just critical people in those positions, Tudor was basically his right-hand man. Anything that he needed, Tudor was there for him. His original agent and good friend Benji was managing the athlete warm-up area and corralling all the athletes and walking them out. And Jason Ansley came out here just literally to be available for anything and everything when he was needed. And this was from consulting to sweeping the floor between rope climb events and everything in between. So just a lot of good people to help make this happen. And, James was actually saying, I think Sunday was his least stressful day since the previous Sunday or something like that.
Yeah. And, we talked about it with him when he came on about the Pacific Northwest is missing, there's a lot of great athletes. You look at it now, you have Justin Medeiros, he's there. Just people are matriculating in that area again, and I guess I want to include, but Dallin, I know Utah is considered Pacific Northwest, but Utah's not that far from there. So you're getting a lot of people in that. Northern California, it looks like there's a lot of rising star athletes there as well. Fort Vancouver, that's, it's just a lot of athletes are possibly thinking about moving to Idaho as well. So, this could be, you brought it up earlier about Crash Crucible. I think Crash Crucible is the measuring stick for competitions that are held in affiliates, like in-house upper level competitions, because Crash is Crash because, and JR said, I think when I spoke to JR, and don't quote me on this, he mentioned something is like he has no desire to move it away from Crash. If anything, he wants it to be smaller, not bigger, because of because one, he knows everything, he knows what he has there, and he can control everything. And I think something like James, where he had knowing what he had, doing everything at the mode campus, knowing that he had carte blanche to do what he wanted to do. I just think it's really cool that if we could bring something like that out to the Pacific Northwest or even the West Coast in general, I think it's something. Obviously, this competition showed that it can be done, and that people are willing come and participate.
Yeah, and some very experienced people, not just athletes, were at this competition. And they all had nothing but positive things to say. Dom D'Agostino was staying here with me at Pat's house. He's obviously good friends with James and Tudor. He brought a few of the Mayhem females out here. I was talking with him, Jessica Andrazik, Miley Wade's family came out. Grace Lochner and her family came out. And these people like go to competitions. Dom's been to a lot of competitions.
Yes, he has.
He was like, and he said, I'm so happy we decided to do this. There's so many things that impressed me. The athletes were saying the same thing. Nothing bad to say about the athlete experience. The workouts were challenging, and I was even like, a few of us were a little skeptical of the final. Like, is this a good final? Strict handstand push-ups to the start for all divisions. It's kind of on the longer side. My goodness, man. The last heat of men and women were two of the most exciting heats of competition for totally different reasons that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah. I mean, just, if I have to get a grade for someone that was outside walking in, I give it a B+ to A-. Just from
definitely not an A.
No, because you know why? If you give it an A, then next year, if it's better, it can only be an A+, and then that's saying it's perfect, right? So I'm not a big believer in giving like perfect grades because it just raises the bar on things. But an A- to B+, that's really, really good on like my type of scale. I mean, like something like Mayhem, which again, Mayhem Classic, the Mayhem is it's not even Mayhem is it can't be compared to Mayhem, but you can definitely strive. I think Jason mentioned something about like Mode thinking about they're working on an expansion, a bigger venue. If that's the case, then who knows? Maybe it could become something as big as Mayhem Classic. Maybe not to the point where it's like maybe a regional or a semifinal, but who knows? Endless possibilities are there. I mean, there's semifinals out there right now that we're like, man, how is that a semifinal? And there's like, and then you have the WFP season, who like I said, tomorrow can be is going to be announced, but maybe some of these smaller competitions could be qualifiers for WFP or something like that. There's a lot of possibilities there. I think James, him coming out to start 2026 is first year competition, throwing it out there. Just I'm very impressed by him, his team, the people he brought out, everything.
Well, let's look at the athletes because ultimately the competition doesn't happen without athletes taking a risk on a first year of competition like this and coming out here. We got the men's leaderboard up here, and I'll say coming into this competition, I didn't really put out rankings or predictions. I had a much better grasp of what I thought the top of the leaderboard would look like on the women's side than the men's side. But when I was looking at it, I think in the preview we said probably Jace Peck and Josh Felix are the two guys that we're most likely to see, threatening for the win.
Adams McAdams, but he got hurt. So
and Adams, but he got hurt. But at the end of the day, I mean, this was Josh Felix and everybody else, and I don't think either of us were expecting that.
No, not this dominating performance. I mean, if you would have asked me like, hey, he's going to win the first two events. And they're two very different events. I mean, basically.
He won every event on day one.
I know. And all of them were different. It's like, usually the first day, it's like, you have like these different varying tests. And, you went from a very long monostructural running type event to something, to an event that just had, multiple reps of deadlifts. And it was just kind of like back squats, at a pretty heavy weight. And I was just so impressed by him. He doesn't seem, just looking at him, it's hard to tell. How big is he? Like, how tall, what do you think his weight is?
He's probably 5'8", and 180 is my guess. 185 maybe. It's hard to say because sometimes these athletes, there's just the muscle density. It weighs more than you expect it to. But, he's kind of he's a similar size to Rich Froning, I would say. Maybe an inch shorter and 5 to 10 pounds less right now, but he's young. And if you don't know Josh Felix, that's because he wasn't around a year ago. The only competitions that he's done, live competitions, and I'm going to include the semifinals in this last year because it was very impressive. He had 50th in online semis globally in 2025. He competed at WFP Challenger in Indianapolis. It was his first ever live competition. He took 13th. Syndicate Crown, he took 19th. Then he got a new coach, which I didn't know, and that was Coach L, who I am more and more intrigued to listen to this podcast that he did with Mesa and Kate tomorrow on my travels home after that. Since then, he did Magic City Games. He lives in Alabama, so local comp to him. I don't know if there was really anyone at that comp to challenge him. He did beach brawl. He caught on the podium there, and he was talking about Noah Wilson. And then he came out here and absolutely demolished the competition. 6 workouts. He won 4 of them, swept day 1, wins the final, 3rd place on the barbell cycling with a really kind of impressive finish to that workout. And then 6th place on a workout that was all about these 10 legless rope climbs. And there were a few big guys in the field that had, that beat everyone on that workout when they weren't beating everyone else, talking about Cam Gray and Hans Kohlenberger. So this was just a super impressive competition for him. And I'm curious what he's going to do this year, but he's firmly put himself on the radar.
Is this a guy that, when you put out your top 100, you would, consider him breaking the top 100 based on the performance you saw?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think that it's good competition experience. I would definitely give consideration to that. And doing the rankings now, it's a lot different because athletes are, the sport's changing and the opportunities are many, and people, can't do everything. Everyone used to do the same thing because it was kind of the only thing. Now there's a lot of things. So people are doing different things. And, Cam Gray, as Lynn's talking about here, like this is a perfect example. I know where Cam Gray kind of fits in with the guys in Australia, and so does he. I had no idea how he would fit in with this field, and neither did he. So Josh Felix, although he's got all these experiences this year, you gotta probably think that realistically right now with what he's done, 70, 80, something like that in terms of global is probably a fairly acceptable place to have him. Maybe a little lower, but I don't think that he's any worse than Noah Wilson, and his potential is very similar.
Yeah, he's 27 years old, so he's hitting that peak strength here. What kind of background does he? Is he a former athlete, a firefighter, anything like that? Or I'm trying to learn more about him.
Not sure actually. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I the only time I spoke to him was right after the finale, I just got up to speed with most of the stuff I just told you. But then, the podium ceremony was going on, and he had a lot of awards and money to collect. That's what, if I'm understanding correctly, every athlete, there were 80 athletes who could and 78 who showed up for this, got about a $350 value just for showing up from sponsors and stuff that James had organized for them. The registration was $240, so considerable.
Pretty high.
They got the value back in their prize purse immediately. Then for the elite division, $3,000, $2,000, $1,000 payout on the podium. Obviously, Josh won the $3,000. In the RX division, there was a $500, $400, $300 payout, I believe, for the podium. You don't see a lot of RX divisions paying out maybe past first place. And he had event wins, $100 cash in your hand if you win an event, for at least for the elite division. Josh won 4 of those. Plus, he won a brand new Earn It Lycan barbell. It's probably $1,000 value. And I think there was close to $1,000 in other things that he accumulated throughout the weekend. Just on the final event, in addition to the $100 cash, he got a $300 Jocko gift card. So it's like the value that he ended up getting for doing well in this competition was pretty good.
And just looking at his Instagram, 14.6 followers. It looks like he's really good at content. Making a lot of posts. When you find out you do, it just seems very impressive. So, so Josh Felix, definitely a guy worth keeping an eye on this season. It'd be very interesting to see what he does, and if what he can do with a competition like this. Sometimes an event win at a competition like this can catapult you into another level of competitiveness. So what this looks like for the rest of the year, I don't know, but I think there's good things on the horizon for him. Let's talk about Jace Peck before we get into the next batch, because I know it's still pretty close between Jace and but I think Jace kind of separated himself before that last event. Jace Peck was a guy that we thought would finish on I actually thought he'd finish second I actually picked Adams McAdams to finish first and Felix in third. Unofficially, I never put him out officially, but Jace finishing second. He's a former teen athlete. He's just kind of, like you've mentioned plenty of times, compete at Syndicate Crown, finished in the top 20 there. Tell us about Chase Peck, his performance.
Well, I actually screwed up and confused him with Jace Brooks in the preview episode, so apologies to both of those guys.
Okay.
But Jace, the year he made the games as a teenager, he told me he got injured or something on the first day and had to withdraw. But lives in Wisconsin. There's actually a decent amount of Wisconsin. I think 3 of the 6 podium athletes in the elite division.
I know Grace was
from
a couple
Wisconsin.
Athletes,
Young guy starting to get experience. I think he's pretty well rounded. I mean, you look at his finishes there. Icebreaker with the legless rope climbs was an outlier, but everything else was pretty solid. And coming out of the teenage division, as we know on the men's side, it's not an easy thing to do. It takes a little bit of time to get there. I love the fact that he's putting himself into competitions like this. A lot of the athletes that I talked to were kind of the mindset that, we don't know necessarily what this is, but it's a competition that is in a time of the year that's kind of favorable. And, Wodapalooza used to monopolize this part of the season, and now there's a vacancy here. I think a lot of people like the idea of having a competition in January before the online portion of many different seasons gets started, as a little bit of a check-in, see how things are going, see what they need to work on. I think Jace, he's still a young guy. A good performance here, but I expect that we'll see him on some competition floors this year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, he's someone I've seen his name pop up here and there in some of these competitions that we've been covering. And, this is a really good performance by him. All right, now let's go into this battle. Basically between heading into the final event, we had, I believe, five people all fighting for that last podium spot. I think by then Chase pretty much had locked up at least a podium finish. We just didn't know where.
No, Jordan was in second place still.
Okay, all right.
But Jordan took 17th out of 18 on this workout.
Yeah.
I talked to him afterwards. He goes, dude, my whole body just shut down. And so if you watched the last heat, or if you watched it, by the time everything shook out, because Anton Faust and Tanner Stahl had some of the best scores earlier in the weekend. Brad Alcott, or in the heats prior to the final.
And it was reversed. It was reversed for someone like Cameron Gray, who finished.
Brad Alcock and Cam Gray were also in that final heat, and so you had Josh Felix win it. You had Jace Peck have a great performance that was like, okay, well, he's clearly taking second now. Jordan, Cam, and Brad were all towards the bottom, but it wasn't exactly clear where they were going to finish. Brad Alcock came one step short of finishing. Jordan didn't finish. Cam Gray finished with like 5 seconds to spare in the time cap. Meantime, Anton and Tanner, who were not, they had good performances. And I said, I have no idea who's taking the third spot on this. None.
Yeah.
And that's why, because look at the point spread.
You had 7 people within 5 points. 7, but no, within 6 points of the last spot for 45 points, down to Hans, and that's pretty impressive. I mean,
Hans was in the mix too, but he didn't have a good final workout. Nicky Rogers had a horrible workout last place, the one before that, but he came back with, I think, a 4th or a 5th on the finale. So he vaulted back into this group, and it was just, I mean, it was chaos on the leaderboard. And like, we weren't expecting someone to run away with this. We were expecting a wide open men's field, and it ended up being, I think 10 points from 2nd to 10th or something like that. So the field basically ended up being somewhat what we thought, in terms of it's kind of anyone's to take. It's just kind of funny that the guy who ends up on the podium is the guy who had the worst finish of the group on the finale, but he had done enough up to that point that he still hung on by one point.
Yeah. No, but great job by Jordan. Outside looking at Tanner, Anton, I know Anton had winning commitment issues. That was very
look at his event finishes there. Click on this thing. You're going to see like a 1st, 2nd, 4th, 12th, 14th, 16th. It was just like, I think Scott Freeman described it as red light, green light.
If he had one more, if there's one more event after Engine Room, it would probably be a top 3. So he was alternating.
But yeah, I mean, look, Tanner Stahl is he's not he thought he told James he'd take last place in this. So this was incredible. Again, he had a similar thing where he just crushed the gymnastics, didn't crush the rest of it. Ends up in a position I don't think he was expecting, but his gymnastics are elite for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of these guys, all of these guys in this group had highs and lows. I think Nikki Rogers had like 4 top 5 finishes and 2 bottom 4 finishes or something.
Yeah.
And that was a cool, I think the cool nature of the programming is that like none of the workouts were like, I don't think they were so like, this is the only thing that matters in this workout, but every workout gave a different style of athlete a chance to show something on the competition floor.
Yeah, and I think that's what you want when you come. If you're an athlete coming to an event like this, especially if you're traveling, like someone like Cameron Gray, you have the opportunity to kind of show your strengths, to show up. You don't want to come there and just lay a goose egg and be like, why did I come here? Oh, I got, some cool gear. But, you want some performance out there. Like Lynn said, shout out to Cam Gray, he's chipping away and just getting better and better. And I thought it was really cool when you had him on, when he talked about the type of athlete he is, in terms of like he's it's all about strategy for him. And he mentioned there's some events on Sunday that I'm, my strategy is going to pay off for me. And it did. And it was kind of cool seeing him kind of like, just willing that into happening. So that was kind of cool. Yeah, just a really cool, really impressive field. A race there towards the end. I mean, if I'm James, I'm excited about that. And if I'm watching or if I'm an athlete there, I'm looking forward to like the rest of the season. I'm looking forward to the next competition that I'm doing to kind of build off of this. And I'm also looking forward to 2027 mode classic and being like, okay, because I think the level of athletes you see here, it's going to be, I think you'll have more people. You'll have more people wanting to come and play, because I also think next year, I think a lot of the partnerships, and now that James will have a full year, not to truly dedicate it, but he now, he can start working on it, piece by piece, and not waiting until 1 month out to get maybe the prize money up, some of the other stuff up there, just make this something more attractive for athletes to come out to. Not that it already isn't. Yeah, Nikki Rogers was someone that I also thought would be fighting for a podium spot, and he did up until the last day. So, and then Hans an OG. It was funny listening to Sean Sweeney talk about, I've been competing against Hans. He's a veteran of the NorCal Classic. So, and shout out Troy, 15th. That's good, impressive.
Yeah, it's great. A great men's field. A lot of different athletes competing, different styles of athletes competing. But let's flip over to the women's side.
All right.
When I said that I had a better grasp on the women's field, I mean, it kind of played out how I would have expected it to, in terms of, I thought Miley and Trista would be battling for the win. I thought Jessica and Elsie would be battling for the final podium spot. I thought Emily White was probably the fifth best athlete in the field. She's a little bit like, you never quite know how good she's going to be able to do. She did great. And then after that, I didn't really know. And Grace Lochner was someone we were obviously looking at to, like, if there was someone who was going to challenge that outside, from outside of that group into the top 5, it might be her. And Sienna, or CJ Pesca-Solido, had a great competition. I was really impressed. But we got to start at the top, and we got to look here at Miley Wade. And this is what I was talking about when I was making a reference during their NFL preview of Caleb Williams. Of Miley has, you call it X factor. You call it an intangible, you call it a third lung or a sixth gear or whatever. If you watch these workouts in her heats specifically, she has the ability to stay calm and composed during the first 3/4 of a workout, and then pick off the other best athletes in the field, and just go to this dark place in the last 10 to 25% of a workout. And when you can do that workout after workout, like these workouts were not all the same. And she was consistently able to do that. Not just to Trista, from the first workout of the weekend, she had this athlete right next to her, Carly Castura, who was, pushing the run, faster split than anyone we saw. They all got through the double unders, the sumo deadlift high pulse, the double unders back to the runner. And Miley looked like she was hurting. I mean, she went to a walk twice on those runners, And then all of a sudden, with 300 meters to go, she just turned it up, and she was from behind to in front, won the workout. And this was the tone that she sent from the first workout that she never really looked back on. You come all the way to the finale, and in her heat, I mean, Trista and Jessica just start attacking like mad women. Emily White was right with them on the handstand pushups and rowing, and Elsie Larson wasn't far. Miley was way behind. Well, but the workout wasn't over. She stuck to the plan. Dom told her she had to break the lunges at least once. She broke them twice, but then he told her on the GHD, you have to do the last set unbroken, and she just did it. Past one woman, which was basically what she needed to secure the win for the competition. And even though it wasn't an event win or a heat win, it was the same thing over and over again of getting late in the workout. I'm going to do what everyone wants to do, but not everyone can do. And that's Miley White.
I think, was it Ring of Fire? Ring of Fire was the back squat event, right?
No, Ring of Fire was the muscle ups, thrusters, and then step overs.
Oh, yeah, it was commitment issues. That was the back squat one.
No, the back squat.
Oh no, that was spring loaded. Sorry, spring loaded was that one with the box jumps. That was the workout. You brought it up. I think, who did you have on with you at that time? It might have been Tudor, but you mentioned something about how she, that you brought up. Like I'm interested to see what she does in that eighth round, that ninth round. Which was kind of like that. That's what you need to do. And Trissa was out to a large lead at that time, and Miley just kept on chipping away. And
I mean, honestly, Trista and Miley, everyone thought that Jessica Androsky was just going to be unbeatable on that. Yeah. Trista came up half a rep short. I mean, she was standing up the rep. It would actually reviewed it because it wasn't clear if she'd gotten the rep before the time cap or not.
Yeah.
And Miley was right there with her.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with both of them on that workout. It was, Miley's 18 years old. She just turned 18. And she's obviously got some good competition experience under her belt. But we talk about it all the time. There's difference between showing up to competitions and doing well and finding a way to win a competition. I think a lot of people, especially from the area, we're thinking Trista Smith was the favorite here, rightfully so. She has the best credentials in her background compared to these. You and I have seen Miley. We know that she's incredibly talented also. And they were right there the whole weekend. So Trista looked great also. I mean, we talk about it all the time, especially with young athletes, trying to find the right balance of how often to compete, what body weight to compete at, what to focus on in training. Maybe with the West Coast that year that she was very close to qualifying to the games, this is about, I know it's a totally different caliber of field and level of competition, but she looked very good. And I don't think that the lack of the depth of the field here is something that should be taken away from how good Miley and Trista looked. No. Whatever they decide to do this season in terms of where they put their efforts to compete, if they're trying to make it to the games, if they decide to go for WFP or anything else, these two are also, like you were asking about Josh Felix, like these two are, I would say at this point, inside the top 50 globally for the women.
I could definitely see that. I think, I've seen Miley a few times live, and watching her here and just the maturity of her athlete, just how she presents herself, how she keeps her head on her shoulder, and I think a lot of that also has to do with her family and her faith as well. And then trusting Dom, like when I've talked to Dom and even Barkley, they said she's so coachable. Like she believes in them. She doesn't, she trusts them that, and that's important, especially for a younger athlete at 18 years old now. She's moving on to the big girls now, and she's excited about it. I remember talking to her at WFP about that. And she was like, that's why she went. She wanted to see how she measured up. Even though she was in the challenger field, she was in that field with people like Hannah Black, with Jessica and Androsik. I mean, some veterans of the sport were in that field, and she wanted to see how she measured up with that. And I think she's riding that boost of confidence. And she's one of those athletes too. I think as good as she is in like qualifiers, I think she's an even better athlete when she's in live competitions because of that factor of like, she can go in that dark place and and it's a lot easier for her to go in that dark place if she's chasing someone live. So if I'm Miley and I'm doing like some qualifiers online, if I'm doing it at Mayhem, I'm having someone else do them with me. It's probably someone better than me, so that way I'm chasing. I know her and Elsie they've done some things together, but I think that's where she has an advantage, where she's only a couple hours away from Mayhem, and she can grab an athlete and be like, hey, let's do this workout, let's do this qualifier, and once she's live in person, she's going to do really well. Trista, you talked about her, but I mean, it's been a while since you've seen Trista, WFP, and she was a pro challenger in WFP in Indianapolis, but she elected kind of just concentrate on the CrossFit Games season. I think she did TFX and then NorCal, and and just missed out on both of those. Like in terms of, I think she was top 5 at both of those competitions, or within the top 8. But yeah.
I mean, Trista's mostly, she's made the move to Fort Vancouver full time to be with Adam, and talking to people who are there training with her, and also talking to her. She's really happy about that. She feels like the relationship that they're developing in the gym on a daily basis is starting to pay dividends. So I think that, as most athletes we talked about are approaching this competition, that they're looking at this as a check-in, see where we're at and go forward from there. So they'll take some stuff back to the drawing board, but it really feels like she's in a good place right now.
Yeah, it was. I really was really impressed that last workout. You probably wouldn't think those movements would be her strengths, but she looked really good. I mean, outside of, we'll talk about Elsie's amazing performance in that final event, but it had similar vibes to that final event she did at West Coast Classic, when she kind of fell apart, when she was like on the cusp of making the games, and then kind of fell apart on those lunges. And now, granted, those were farmer carry lunges, I believe, right? Yeah, and this is more overhead, and I think she's a lot more comfortable with it, having that weight overhead. Granted, it was heavier at West Coast, but I was really impressed at how she moved and her composure. She broke at the right time. She didn't try to chase down Elsie or any of the other athletes, because at the time Emily White was running away with her.
Well, yes and no. I mean, that last heat of women, if you didn't watch it, I would recommend going to watch it. It was a very, very fun heat. All of the women very impressive in that heat. But I think, Miley and Trista, the leaderboard wasn't as spread out, because a lot of these women were just filtering to the top with not necessarily as deep of a field. But it was clear that Miley and Trista were the 2 best athletes here, and they, got the 1 and 2 spot deservedly. Jessica Andrazik, I see Lynn saying that she's, underestimated her based on WFP. Jessica's like, she's all in on the team this year. That's where she's putting her focus. But when the workouts came out, I think a lot of people thought you were going to see 3 event wins for her. She ended up getting 2. And then, kind of everyone knew the engine room was probably going to be lowest finish. Let's see how the legless rope climbs go. She did awesome on the legless rope climbs. And
she's a Mayhem athlete. I think that's a prerequisite, right?
Yeah, but she's she's on the shorter side. The things that make her great at all the other workouts, like they don't lend themselves to being good at legless rope climbs. Plus the grip demand, she's got smaller hands, the size that she is. But the technique that Mayhem practices, which you see almost all their athletes do, is they get to basically even someone that's only 5 feet tall like she is, gets to about a meter below the tape line, stops, uses all the momentum, reaches up, taps, and goes back down. And they can all make that reach. She did it. Miley did it. Not very many athletes here did it. And we were talking about it on the broadcast. Like, is it the best technique? I don't know. But clearly Mayhem thinks it is.
Yeah. I mean, you're being taught by some of the best in Rich. And I mean, also, I think to this day, I still think Angelo might be one of the best rope climbers in the world. Yeah. I mean, I know Taylor Self is up there as well. But I still think, Angelo's probably the best. But, I mean, that's something they teach, especially the speed rope down.
I think Cam Gray might be amongst the best.
Oh, yeah.
That was insane. If you want to watch some, I mean, you talk about a tactician in a workout, watch his workout there. He could smash a skier. He was last by far in his heat. He could do the snatches unbroken. He took sets of 5. He was minutes behind, and he made up minutes on Hans Kohlenberger, who's another big guy, maybe an inch or shorter than him. And he was spending no more. The amount of time he spent going up plus down the rope climb would be like comparable to the amount of time that the best quarterbacks in the NFL spend with the ball in their hands, 1.7 to 2.5 seconds. It was insane. And he took the least amount of time rep to rep than anyone else. And it looked like he could have maintained the pace for 10 more. It was, I would say if you just want to do like 20 legless rope climbs for time, I'm not sure anyone could beat that guy.
Yeah. But back to Jessica. This is an athlete we saw at West Coast Classic when it was in Vegas, when she was up until the final day. She was in a spot, a game spot, was really impressive. Then went to Brute, suffered an injury that devastated her. I think it was her elbow, I believe, dislocated her elbow and an overhead squat or something like that, and then made the move with Dom from Brute to Mayhem. And last year she competed at the games on a team. And like you said, she's looking at team again. But she's the type of athlete that does like to compete individually. We saw her a couple times last year. She did one WFP event, and looks like she's doing one here. But that's really cool to hear that Jessica looks like she's having fun and just really enjoying herself and healthy.
And then Elsie Larson, and Elsie. I know that Elsie Larson is excellent at barbell cycling. Dom mentioned to me also that both her and Miley had extremely good performances on the GHD overhead walking lunge workout in semifinals last year, and like 6th and 11th worldwide or something like that. So she's, I think she might be the best overhead walking lunge in the world. I mean, that was ridiculous. GHDs are really in Miley's wheelhouse, but she, after the engine room was out of the way, she had solid finishes across the board, ended with an event win, looked amazing at the barbell cycling as we'd expected, just good battery work, good level of fitness, young athlete. We've been talking about her a couple of times this year. She's another one that's, pushed inside, I would say, the top 100 globally, not quite at the level of Tristan and Miley yet, but tons and tons of potential. She's got, as we see with many athletes, like she's going to have to work on the running, some of the longer stuff, but I'd rather be an athlete who has the strength in the gymnastics and needs to improve on the conditioning than the other way around.
Yeah, 100%, because she can become a better runner, especially her build, her youth. Like she just has to, and she's obviously shown the ability to hurt. She just needs to just get better at running. And the best way to get better at running is running. And it's one of those things where it's time consuming, and I think I think Dom and that staff that they have at Mayhem, she's in a right spot, to help her with that.
The other thing I would say about all four of these athletes, young athletes, nice people, fierce competitors, they are really good at switching it on and getting in this mindset when it's go time. And they're battling out there, and it's funny because they don't necessarily look like that's how they would be when you just see them in everyday life, but they are very serious about this and very good at getting into the competitive mindset at the right time.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about Emily real quick. Yep. 5-time semifinal athlete. I mean, she clearly has that pedigree, that caliber in her. She's been, she told me she's been dealing with a lot of injuries. She hasn't been really able to train some of the gymnastics the way that she would want to, or the heavy weightlifting. And she took a couple hits on the muscle ups and legless rope climbs as expected. I didn't realize that her upper body vertical pressing was as good as it is. She said it's a lot different than my horizontal pressing. So she surprised me on end game. And like you said, she came up one step short of an epic finish there as well. But overall, I mean, I think that I did ask her, and she was pretty happy with the weekend. I think there was some stuff that she kind of surprised herself on, given what she has not been able to do in training. And she kind of found herself in this middle ground here. Like, she was better than everyone below her. I think in an optimal setting, she could have competed for the podium with a couple of the girls ahead of her. But Emily White's just solid. She's got a lot of competitive experience. And it showed this weekend. If you watched, she knew what she could do. She knew where she could be aggressive. She took advantage of the stuff that she's great at, and she managed the stuff that she hasn't been able to practice as much.
Yeah, and because of all that experience and her being a veteran, especially compared to the other 4 women ahead of her, that's why she went for it. She knew her only chance to make the podium was for her to win that event, and she went for it. And just like I said, she got down that lunge, but that left arm just gave up on her, and
She
but
wasn't
she
the
was
only
smart
one.
enough.
There were a lot of people there were a lot of athletes that pushed it to the end and one of the arms just gave out.
Yeah.
But
And
that's what you got to do sometimes,
yeah.
especially the final movement, final workout. You know what's on the line. You got to push it, and sometimes it's enough, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah. One thing I did want to kind of bring up, especially about the women and the men, is like James had some vested interest in that, and there was a couple athletes, especially when it came to the lifting event, where some of them were setting PRs, or getting close to PRs, and they weren't sure they were going to get that weight up, and it was really cool hearing James as their coach, kind of just like seeing that, and having them put it out there and give him that opportunity. And like I said, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to give some of these athletes who never would have an opportunity like this to be in this type of setting as a professional athlete. And I think he achieved that. And I think a lot of his athletes that he had there, and even the athletes that he knew, like, he knows Grace, he's not her coach, but he's known her for a while. Just give him the opportunity. And you could definitely hear how proud he was of everyone.
Yeah. And in particular, you're talking about Britt Rychik, last athlete into the field, less than a week notice, PRs or snatch, hits 2 more at that weight, has 2 heat wins to close out the competition. And this is, I think I'm really happy that you brought this up because, to me, there are athletes that can beat James Sprague in a competition weekend, but you look at 2025 and I don't think it's even close. He is clearly, and he will be the number 1 ranked athlete on my rankings coming into 2026. The body of work that he put together in 2025.
Breaking news.
Well, the body of work that he put together in 2025, winning Wadapalooza, winning the WFP finals to bookend. He podiumed almost everywhere. 4th place at Rogue, where most people, including his coach, said, 7th would be a great finish for him there. He did an Ironman. He did a High Rocks. In the meantime, he also is a coach to young athletes, which is, a big thing to take on. And then starting in August, in the midst of all these competitions and personal pursuits, he decides to run this competition, and he executes a first-year competition at a level that blew away someone who does it as a profession in Jason Ansley.
Yeah.
Being an athlete at the level that he is a full-time commitment. And you're not talking about just the training, but the nutrition, the preparation, the body work, the sleep, all the attention to detail, these little things that move the needle. And if you were listening closely this weekend, even at 23 years old, the awareness that Tudor and James have for a lot of things that athletes don't often talk about, from, Tudor talking about tendon training and, with the rebounding box jumps and all these minutia. And then he also has a coaching business. He also starts this competition. It's unique. I don't really know of anyone else that's able to perform at this level and take on other things with such passion and interest as he's doing.
It reminds me, there's a lot of like talk about like you're hearing a lot of like people saying, "Oh, I miss the old days of CrossFit, the old school, the old, the athletes of the generation, Rich Froning and stuff like that." I think James is kind of a throwback to that, and maybe he's taking it up another notch. Where he does care. He is doing things. He is being involved. He's doing the stuff necessary. He's putting the whole sport. He's willing to put the whole sport of just not CrossFit, but functional fitness, put it on his back and carry it if he has to. And he's that guy who's like, I'm going to do that if no one else wants to do it, or I'm willing to do it. That's why you see him involved. That's why I think anytime he gets a call from CrossFit, he's like, I'm there. Tell me what you need, and I think he's, him, and you put in Justin, Dallin, and Jason, those guys, they're leading the pack in that, because we're seeing Justin's doing stuff like that as well, whether it be his initiative where he, and then him helping out at competitions, doing some programming. I think now that Dallin's back in Utah, I could see Dallin doing some stuff like that, especially when, Jason, Jason's just,
well, and I think Jason, honestly, I think it's good for them.
I do too.
It is such it is such a relentless pursuit to be the best at this sport. And whatever it is, if you can find stuff that you care about to spend time on outside of that, one of the things that I think a lot of athletes run into once they have sponsorship support and are good enough to get to the big competitions is that they don't, they overtrain basically. No, they overtrain.
Yeah.
And if you have other things to do, then rest days it's not so tempting to go into the gym. Or if your coach only gives you one thing to do in a day, it's not so tempting to be like, should I just hop on the bike for an hour? It's like, you don't need to do that. Take the rest. The rest is valuable. Invest in anything else. And so
Lito brought up a good can I just say that I didn't used to be a big fan of James Sprague, and with all the things he's been doing with and for the community, he's won me over. What a guy. And we've talked about this before. I think it started in 2024 when he won the games. And a lot of people, were kind of turned off by him. He became almost unnecessarily a polarizing figure. I kind of like compared him to Noah Olsen, back between Noah Olsen between 2016 and 2019, where people just like people didn't like Noah for whatever reason. And I think a lot of it came down to people thought he was just playing or acting like this character. And then when they realized, no, that's how Noah is, he's great. He's got this huge appreciation. I think James is the same way. What you see with James, that's him. He doesn't change what you see on camera, whether you like it or not. But I love it. I mean, that's who he is. He's a loving guy. He cares. He wants to. When he asks you, how's your day going? He's not saying that. He really wants to know how your day's going. And I think that's great that Lito recognizes that and is kind of changing his opinion on that.
So, I mean, I didn't really want this podcast to go over an hour. We're right at the hour mark. That's totally fine. All the conversation we're having is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just would echo what I said at the beginning, that I'm really grateful I made a decision to come out here. Really grateful for James and Pat giving me the opportunities, to have a place to stay. Pat's lent me his car the entire week. And James, he provided all the things that I asked for to try to make the broadcast great, to represent his vision. I think it went really well. Got a lot of positive feedback. Just an awesome thing. So, it seems like he has every intention of doing this again next year. The Mode campus was extremely accommodating, and they're invested. Jason Ansley's likely going to be involved. He was already talking with those guys about ways that they could make small changes to grow in year number 2. So this was an incredible week, a great start to 2026 for me. And I'm excited to see what comes of the Mode Classic going forward. Plus, like we always do at these competitions, we get introduced to a few athletes. And then also get to see evolutions of some other ones. So yeah, definitely going to make a couple of small tweaks to the rankings. I'll probably put out one set of rankings, right before the Open starts, and except a couple of these names will absolutely be on there.
Yeah. Before we go, there's one thing I hate to kind of end it on a kind of a sad point, but this past weekend, or actually last week, the founder of 12th State CrossFit in Raleigh, North Carolina, passed away. Her name was Molly McDonald. She was actually someone that I met in college. She was when I played football at Southern Illinois, she was one of the athletic trainers, and she's actually one of the first people that I knew that actually started CrossFit, and she lived and died CrossFit. And she passed away due to ovarian cancer, and that community there, which is, shepherd people like Shelby Neal. This is Molly here. And she didn't complain about it. I didn't know this was happening, that she was suffering from cancer. But 12th State CrossFit, if it's a pretty well-known name. It's over a 10-year affiliate, but they lost one of their own. And this coming weekend, they are throwing a memorial wad and services for her at 12th State on Sunday, on January 18th, 12:30. If you're in the Raleigh, North Carolina area, or if you knew Molly and feel the need to do something, they have a workout plan for her, and there's also some donation to ovarian cancer as well. She leaves behind a husband and two small children as well. It just sucks because, like I said, this is someone that I knew before CrossFit, and then she's one of the people that put CrossFit on my radar, and she lived by it. And it's just a huge loss to the community. A whole community has lost their shining light, their leader, and so my heart goes out to Molly's family. She has family here locally to St. Louis. She's from the Edwardsville area, and the Saluki family. A lot of her friends. She was I believe she was a big Bears fan. I know she was a Cubs fan too, and her community in 12th State as well. So if you get a chance, maybe head over to 12th State CrossFit Instagram, send them your thoughts, and like I said, if you want to support their community, there's a WOD on Sunday, as well as you can do it through some donations. So I'll put that in the description in the show description as well. So rest in peace, Molly. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for everything you continuously do for the community and everyone that loves you. You won't be forgotten. So
yeah, and thanks for taking the time to do that. Obviously, it's a very emotional for the people who knew her well, like you did, but it's also just this reminder that there's things that are important in this life, and there's things that are not important in this life, and it's very easy sometimes to get caught up in the dramas and the debates and the comparisons. But when some things like this happen, and we seem to be reminded of these, almost on a 3 to 6 month period of time with people that we know passing away from all these different things. When these things come across my path, I try to use it as an opportunity to remind myself of why I do it, who I do it for, and also to not get so sucked into the negativity that it's easy to do, because there's so many other things that are far more important to invest our energy in. So Molly's impact is not ended because her life is over, and she can continue to, as many of us have, and many people have before her, leave a legacy that is about community and love and doing things for the right people for the right reasons with the right people.
Thanks, Brian. All right, everyone, thanks you for coming by. Special shout out to HER CBD for sponsoring the show, as always. We're moving on with them for the 2026. Obviously, pretty excited about what we have planned with them in the future.
Actually, really cool Carl just sent me something while we were on the show. I can't wait to show everyone what's going on.
All right, awesome. So a lot of cool things. So they're going through some rebranding, which is some exciting rebranding that I think you're all going to enjoy. And thanks again. Thanks for again. Shout out. Brian said shout out to James Sprague and the Mode Classic, the Mode family, for allowing us to be a part of it. Hopefully, we can continue on the relationship. And again, we'll probably be maybe on tomorrow. Well, you're traveling tomorrow, so maybe Wednesday we'll do a show. Probably recap some of the WFP news that is coming out tomorrow, as rumored. Well, not rumored. It's actually said that the WFP said it is coming out. And then I know the girls have a show on Thursday, and I know you wanted to do something regarding the UA Storm games. That's going to be happening this coming weekend. A lot of big names competing at that, and a lot of names that you're probably going to see in a couple weeks after that at Crucible. So, so busy week for us. For the people who said, "Hey, glad that we're back. We never went anywhere." I'm glad we're back too. So, with that being said, hey everyone, just be nice to each other. Remember that this is just things are very simple now. Things don't make things too overcomplicated. And at the end of the day, just be friendly. And with that being said, be friendly, our friends.